And finally, we now come to perhaps one of the biggest examples of Chris's delusions, something that has ever since corroded his very small, very tiny mind, and something that I'm pretty sure a lot of you are sort of becoming to terms with the fact that, well, nobody plays into this anymore, and I don't even think Chris even plays into this anymore. And just to give a little bit of a quick update before we begin about my hand, it's fine, it's just bruised quite bad, so yeah, don't worry, nothing's broken or anything like that. So let's begin. The dimensional merge. Now, the first thing we gotta stop and ask ourselves is, what exactly is Chris talking about? What exactly is a dimensional merge? Well, to put it in layman's terms, it's Chris's belief that there's a fantasy world filled with cartoon characters that actually exists in some form of reality, and it's only it's a form of Chris's maladaptive coping mechanisms. It's to justify the fact that Chris doesn't actually have to do anything, and that he's perfect completely the way he is, and everyone else has to treat him just the same. That's basically it in a nutshell, but because there's a little bit more to it, we're going to find out. So, from the video where Chris talks about the dimensional merge, see the announcement, and damn Dimension 1218's reality limits and shit. Chris, after New Year's 2019, disappointed when our reality did not merge with Sonichu's. Also Chris, the dimensional merge is completed. All that remains of Universe 1218 is the failing Earth period. Chris coping with being sent to jail for an extended period of time. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what else can I say? That's apparently, it was all in the script. Meanwhile, there's, you see, what Chris decided to do here is that he wrote on Virginia's freedom of speech wall, Dimensions C197 and 1218 are merging, beware of your surroundings, keep calm. Yeah, and thankfully, nobody decided to pay attention to it. Thank God for that. Also, I know Chris is quite tall, but how did he manage to get it all the way across this top part of the wall? Questions. and bigger question is whether or not Lewis really is Clark. If Lewis is going out with Clark Kent. The dimensional merge, or the dimensional merger, if you're an even bigger idiot, is a supposed apocalyptic event in which Chris believes that Dimension 1218 and Dimension C197, read the universe of real life and the parallel universe where Sonichu and other fictional characters live, will combine, bringing fictional characters into reality, and in which Chris, being the designated Leonze of the event, will ascend unto godhood. Of course, the merge is just an escapist fantasy and coping mechanism for Chris. Originally part of the lore the old idea guys had brainwashed into Chris, the dimensional merge is Chris's latest means of avoiding reality, believing that it will rescue him from his self-inflicted, real-life problems and enable him to continue living like a child. First announced in October 2018, the merge was expected to take place by the end of the year. That deadline and several others passed without incident, but Chris has remained persistent / delusional. In the years since, indulging this belief has become the default latching on point for would-be trolls. In the beginning, whoa, I nearly just flipped my mouse over. Chris has, for a very long time, believed in the existence of one or more alternative universes, where every fictional character lives. He first alluded to this belief during a January 2010 phone call with Alec Benson Leary, in which he told Leary that Aspachu would surely have negative feelings about his own name, and repeatedly call Leary naive for explaining that Aspachu is not a living sentient creature who lives in another universe and can independently generate his own thoughts. This is most likely one of the things Chris has learned from copious amounts of television. More specifically, he offered the 1988 animated comedy film Who Framed Roger Rabbit to Leary as evidence for a toon world, inhabited by every published or unpublished cartoon character. Now, as I know you find well you're saying is that in the same phone call, Leary questioned Chris the fact that Who Framed Roger Rabbit was still just a movie and none of that exists in reality. And when Chris really did want to ask Leary if he didn't believe that that couldn't exist in reality, and of course Alex said yes, Chris called him naive immediately. So Chris has had, I know Chris has had his issues long before 2010, but this is sort of the thing where you're beginning to take a step back and think to yourself, wait a minute, what? He can't really be serious, can he? From then up to the Dimensional Merge saga, Chris has increasingly believed that the fictitious city of Quickville and its characters were real, embracing their alleged existence as a way to escape from anything he does not like. Chris has been spotted conversing, interacting, and even dancing with his imaginary friends on many such occasions. Throughout 2017, Chris appeared convinced by the idea guys that the Sonichu and Hyperdimension Neptunia universes actually existed, but in a separate dimension. In July 2018, Chris tweeted at Marvel writer Seanan McGuire, asking him to confirm the dimension number of this Earth. McGuire responded with Earth 1218, and later clarified that this was the Marvel's universe designation for the real universe. Chris took it as gospel, and subsequently uses 1218 to refer to the actual existing universe. Weeks later, McGuire reiterated once again that everything was imaginary, but Chris's response to McGuire and various trolls indicates that he still believes that people such as McGuire can communicate with other dimensions. By the way, in case you do want to see some of McGuire's work, I would recommend it. At least, you can't really blame McGuire. He was a complete innocent in all this. Over the summer and fall of 2018, Chris met with the TT Squad, people who gave him weed, pretended to be possessed by Sonichu characters, and that the universes would merge. Relations to the financial crisis. Chris believes that he is wealthy in Quickville, and that when the dimensions merge, he will have access to his money, and there he will be able to pay off his current real-world debilitating and crippling debts. He has to borrow money from people, claiming he will pay back 10 times the amount once the merge concludes, not realizing he sounds like a more autistic version of the Nigerian prince scam. On the 8th of October, Chris tweeted, "Sometimes I just want to give up, but my loves won't let me. If people could help us here in this world monetarily, we would be okay. I promise all of you that when that day comes, I will reimburse you, personally in the nation of Quickville." It begs the question about if Chris just wanted to do that, why didn't Chris just... It's simple. Here's what you do. Chris, you start a new YouTube channel. You find a niche relates to Sonichu. You make videos about it. You don't respond to trolls. You just make videos as you did before. You become monetized by Google. You make money from Google doing this. Somebody with Chris's reputation, you would have imagined it would have taken Chris maybe a few days to have at least 5 videos out, to have roughly 4,000 watch hours in literally a couple of days, and if Chris could have saw the impact, it could have changed his ways so that he could have actually have made more money just through YouTube than he would. But again, trying to actually communicate smart ideas to Chris is literally like talking to a brick wall. I wish it wasn't the case, but, well, what can I say? He followed up on the 23rd of October with, "When the worlds merge, I will have access to tons of savings in Quickville. It is a lot of money, indeed. 10 to 1 is my repayment rate." On the 24th of September, Chris was sued by Second Round Sub for unpaid debt, and on the 23rd of October 2018, so less than a month later, Midland Funding followed suit. The case for the former was postponed to January, but the verdict of the Midland case was read on the 19th of December 2018, requiring Chris to pay $2,777.90 at 6% interest and $55 in court costs. Remarkably, he has done little begging in the wake of the lawsuits. This has surprised many, considering the immense amount of times he has grovelled online for money in the years 2016 to 2018. He has instead chosen to stick his head in the sand and pretend that the merge will solve all his problems for him. Beliefs on the merge. When I had to go to hospital and stay in hospital with heart complications, Chris sent me a message from his Magi-chan Sonichu account claiming that my symptoms were associated with effects from the dimensional merge. No, it's because, Chris, you are very, very unhealthy, and this is, time catching up with you, according to Ali Hirschberg. Chris announced the event on the 14th of October 2018. On the 26th of October 2018, Chris posted a video entitled Dimensional Merge Announcements, where he outlined the process of 1218 merging with its sister dimension C197, where every fictional character known to exist resides. He believes that once the merge occurs, Earth will be shared by humans and various characters. On the 14th of November, Chris made a tweet explaining the survival rates for the inhabitants of the sister dimensions during said merge. Chris explains the population math as follows, and we have covered a lot of this before when it comes to Chris and science as well as his relation to math, so I won't bore you too much of here, but basically Chris is under the illusion that 51% of 1218 is going to survive, 41% of this Earth is going to die, and there's something of an 8% margin of error, so it could be as little as 47% of Earth surviving, and more than half the population dies, which doesn't exactly sound like a good idea. And I don't know where Chris even comes up with the idea for this, but what do you expect for someone who writes all of this down on a McDonald's napkin? That's not a basis for, any scientific breakthrough, but that's Chris. Chris explains the math as follows. 61.25% of the population of dimension C197 is identical to that of Earth in dimension 1218. The remaining 38.75% of the population of C197 ROCs are unique to C197. All of the OCs of C197 are guaranteed to survive the merge. At least 51% of the human population of the Earths in both sister dimensions will survive the merge, and at least 41% will not, with an uncertainty of 8%. The best outcome of the merge would have 59% of the population of 1218 alive, and all of the 38.75% of the OCs of C197, plus 11.25% of the human population of C197 in the dimension 1218 C197, the dimension 1C-211987 would be left with 109% of 1218's current population, leaving approximately 8.365 billion humans and OCs in the new universe. Need to take a moment to pause, ladies and gentlemen, because did any of that make any sense? No, it didn't. And here is the proof. Chris Thanosing the two dimensions with the Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah, not that I imagine the Mad Titan had to do any thinking either, but there you are. Naturally, he believes that he will be guaranteed survival because he absorbed the spiral seal from his Sega Dreamcast and is therefore the middleman between the two dimensions. He believes that himself and Megan are basically deities. This was the point where Megan Schroeder, and yes, that is who the Megan Chris is referring to, Megan Schroeder made it entirely known to Chris that she possessed guns and didn't want to have anything to do with this. And Chris backed off almost instantly. And that he will gain superpowers following the merge because of his belief that he is half Sonichu. He sent dozens of follow-up tweets, further detailing the process, explaining that Quickville would replace Northern Virginia, Gotham City will replace a portion of New Jersey, and a question, well, again, Chris never explicitly states what part of New Jersey. Is it going to be White House Station? Is it going to be Karlstadt? Is it going to be Harrison? Is it going to be Montclair? You know what I'm saying? Chris... whatever. And Equestria will take over the entirety of Maryland. He explained that this will resemble a natural disaster scenario and that mass evacuations may occur during the merge. On the 18th of November 2018, Chris announced that the merge had begun. This date coincides with the anniversary of the Jonestown mass S-word, implying that the idea guys had originated the merge concept, as their calling card was inserting infamous historical dates into Quickville lore. And Chris ate that up like you wouldn't believe. In early December 2018, Chris reported feeling psychic headaches and associated the merge with the California wildfires and Remain Letters recall. As the merge drew closer, he claimed to have lightning powers, and that the millions of volts of electricity in his head is evidence that he is half Sonichu. Without giving a time estimate for the merge, he tried to dispel doubts by claiming that he can touch and feel Magi-Chan and Grizel Rosechew. He estimated that the merge would conclude by the year's end. This is despite the fact that, as you might imagine, nobody believed it, but Chris somehow chose to continue with this. Why, I don't know, because I think at this point Chris is, as they say in the trade, he is all in with this. Magi-Chan doxing incident. On Christmas Day 2018, someone claiming to be Magi-Chan logged into Chris's Twitter, posting a paste bin dump containing the docs of one of the TT Squad's members. They also stated that the merge would actually take place in 20 years due to time dilation, and that Sonichu residents of C-197 would need to hibernate until then. Chris ultimately disregarded the news. Until he absolutely had to. The merge in 2019 and beyond. Naturally, New Year's Eve of 2019 was an eagerly awaited moment as the final chance for the cataclysm to occur. In the early morning of the hours of the 1st of January 2019, Chris spoke out on Twitter in a New Year's address explaining that the merge had not happened on time due to red tape, betraying some internal bureaucracy in the process of becoming the goddess of 80s computers. He remained insistent that the event would still occur, adding in reassurances that the Sonichu verse was still awake to remind everyone of the Magi-Chan doxing's non-canon status. Good New Year, everyone. I shall make my statement for now, and I want no backtalk or hateful commentary. The dimensional merge of C-197 and our 1218 is still in progress. There is more damn red tape to work through, but our goal is still set. It is only delayed. Everyone of C-197 is still very much awake. We have secured our thwart in our magic-proof cell a few days ago. Not even that witch's courier on Facebook can say otherwise, because I know better. And her words shall never get to or sway me away or any other way. I still remain the CPU blue heart of the Commodore consoles, Quickville and Comma, and everyone is safe and well. But for now, I shall delay online talk of the Dimensional Merge through my social media accounts until further notice. And I still remain very much married to Magi-Chan, Sonichu, Grizel Rosechew, Sylvana Rosechew, and Mewtwo. There is room for at least one from this dimension, but there is no rush. For now, Happy New Year, everybody. Dismiss. Lightning, heart, lightning. The context behind Chris's aside about Off-War was revealed in screen caps Lucas leaked on /cow/dot. In them, a person purporting to be an Off-War possessed Jessica Quinn PMs Chris's over Facebook saying she had tried to trick Chris into believing in the merge. However, the attached post from Lucas suggests that Lucas had been posing as Quinn in an attempt to pass the blame onto her. I'm not even the one who started the merge thing. I just tricked my mom's sugar daddy into buying Chris's porn shit. Here's screenshots Chris sent to me of texts from Jessica Quinn, pretty sure she's the one. Despite Chris stating that he would abstain from talking about the merge until further notice, he went on to mention in the following day, while writing about superpowers that he got from it. On the 4th of January 2019, Chris said that he was awaiting further information on the merge, more indication that the entire merge event had been scripted and fed to him by trolls who were no longer in the picture. Because of some deity-level red tape, it's delayed, but it will happen soon enough. But don't make a big deal about it until I have more further information about it. Chris during the Jackson Dalton interview. Particularly troubling about Chris's comment is that he wants more information in order to verify that his delusional thoughts are real. By admitting this, He highlighted a path for new trolls to get into his head, showing he failed to learn from the Idea Guy saga. Several eager weens rushed in to fill the gaps in Chris's knowledge. Though by mid-June 2019, Chris had apparently become overwhelmed with these and has since turned to other, more credible sources. Continued hope in the merge. After the first deadline for the merge had passed, Chris remained optimistic that the merge would still happen at some point. While he was initially quiet about it, I wonder why, he began ramping up the rants about the merge again around spring. On the 31st of March, he tweeted, "The dimensional merge is still happening and going on. C197 plus 1218 equals 1C-211987. OCs are really becoming more obvious here. There are even some sightings of a Dio blonde vampire in Egypt. Descendants beware, Dio is coming after you all." Several merge-related tweets followed in April, in which he claimed that people in Japan were seeing OCs, and blaming the Notre Dame church fire on a Pokemon. The events around this time given clear context for Chris's renewed interest in the merge. Early in March 2019, after Chris was gifted a Nintendo Switch, he developed an obsession with playing the augmented reality game Pokemon Go. The game's premise revolves around using smartphones to see Pokemon characters in real-world settings, which coincides with Chris's beliefs about the merge. On the 2nd of April 2019, Chris was sued for debt for the 4th time, further confirming the link between the merge and his financial problems. On the 3rd of April, so the very next day, a new troll entered the stage with a future message for Crystal Western Chandler, who presented himself to Chris as a messenger of the merge. Beginning in summer 2019, Chris would emphasize more often that the merge is already nearly done and would soon be completely finished. Like an obscure sect leader struggling to explain to his followers after the fact that why the second coming had not come when he calculated it should, on the 13th of June 2019, Chris claimed that he had been consulting with Jesus Christ, and that Jesus had been helping with the dimensional merge, which would be finished in the near coming days. But without giving an actual set date, Chris also mentioned that Jesus had been preaching this at churches and in Pokemon gyms. No, he hadn't. And yet needed Chris to help get the word out by posting to his protected Twitter account. Naturally, after indulging his fantasies on the matter, Chris immediately started begging for money. As July 2019 began, Chris tried to demonstrate his divine abilities through psychic powers, a pair of videos in which Chris drops items from his hand by the Idomotor effect. On the 8th of June, he tried to assure his true and honest believers on Twitter that the merge's effects would be mild and temporary, and continued his long trend of attributing random events in the news as harbingers of the merge. On the 10th of July, Chris, via his Magichan sock puppet on Twitter, complained about the many uninspired trolls who had tried to take advantage of the merge to exploit Chris. This has not prevented others, such as the multidimensional White Knights or one Jacob Sockless, from attempting to weasel their way into Chris's inner circle. To advance his belief in the merge, Chris has resorted to using sock puppet accounts on Twitter, most prominently Magichan111448, to broadcast events, whether he is using this as a transparent disguise or to convince others, or he generally thinks that he is channeling his cartoon character's thoughts and statements into a microblogging platform, is unclear. On the 14th of August 2019, Magichan would announce that he has allegedly arrived into the real world and would presently describe in a video that the merge's status. In a Discord message on November 2019, Chris was still pinning for the merge, or pining I should say, I do apologise, stating, "As for getting me into C197, that has to happen ASAP." In March 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Chris believed it to be a sign of the impending merge. On the 29th of December 2020, Chris announced that the merge is on. Later in the day, Chris stated that the merge is on. His post was in reference to an Apex event, most likely referring to him attempting to break the Iron Curtain. The next day, Chris went into further detail alluding to the merge happening on New Year's Day 2021. When New Year's Day came and went, Chris clarified he meant the merge would happen any moment at the present time, meaning very soon after the New Year. On the January 22nd, Chris announced that the merge would be completed, making it the third time he had claimed the merge would happen at a specific time. So later, back on the 30th of October 2020, Chris, pretending to be Sonichu, stated he could not get Chris's body back to C-197 and Chris and Sonichu's swole sopped, Chris could not return to 1218. Bit concerning, but when Chris and Sonichu swapped on the 25th of February 2021, Chris was expecting the merge to happen on that day because of the swap, which is why he said, "The dimension merge is happening, know which universe you're in, when are suddenly transported peoples." This would be the fourth time Chris has claimed the merge would happen at a specific date. Due to the merge not happening on the 25th of February and My Little Pony G5 movie screenshots being leaked, Chris decided to leave Twitter to remain in his cognitive dissonance. Predictably, this commitment to leave the website lasted only a single day. On the 9th of March 2021, Chris claimed that 1218 and C-197 were one combined dimension in the past, but King Arthur and other kings used magic to separate the combined dimensions and send all known magic to C-197. Cuckoo, the merge as it's happening. Chris has written in a 25th of May 2022 letter directed towards Kenneth Engelhardt, telling him that he believed that the dimensional merge has already happened, and as a result of all the people he's deemed as toxic, has suddenly evaporated. As he later learned, this was not the case. Post-merge era. During his arrest on the 1st of August 2021, Chris declared that the merge is on, once again possibly believing that it will get him out of jail. In a series of letters addressed to a number of individuals penned during his incarceration, Chris has continued to maintain his beliefs in the merge, even as he incorporated several aspects of Christianity and biblical references into his ever-shifting mythos. Despite his apparent newfound faith in God and his self-identification as a living reincarnation of Jesus himself, he has consistently kept his title of CPU Blueheart, making numerous allusions allusions to his belief in the merge across all of his letters. In his first widely publicized message from jail, he claimed the merge was completed and concluding, echoing similar beliefs in his second missive. Most notably, in the third letter from jail addressed to a Ween attempting to convert him to Islam, he states that the merge is completed, with only the failing Earth of his home dimension awaiting eventually incorporation into Chris's OC-infested utopia. While some expected his time behind bars to educate him, Chris has evidently chosen to further ensconce himself with his imaginary world, likely doubling down on the merge's use as a coping mechanism in the belief that it will rescue him from his imprisonment and probable conviction. The merge's future closure, of course, is subject only to Chris's whims, and it is not dependent on Chris's deteriorating finances, his aged mother's declining health, or any events in 1218. Originally supposed to be complete within a few months of its announcement, it is now nearly complete and yet continues to be pushed further into the future, as nothing in Chris's world objectively changes except the identities of his enabling rivals for incompetence. Whether Chris will abandon his belief in the merge in the event of some external shock like Bob's death and its fallouts, or retreat even further into it, is something only time can tell. Judgment Day, the Second Coming, and the collective shift. As he was being arrested, as you do, Chris noted that, in his mind, the merge was almost complete, as he denied the reality settling in that he'd be thrown into the brig for a very long time. Some anticipated that with enough time away from the internet and left purely to his own devices, Chris might come to realize the truth. However, instead of being a wake-up call, Chris's reignited interest in the Bible instead caused him to retreat even further into his fantasies, believing himself to be Jesus Christ reincarnated. Over many correspondences from jail, Chris outlined a judgment day where the following 3 events are supposed to occur. 1. The continuation of the dimensional merge. 2. The collective shift, where all of the good and neutrals in the world will be sent to C-197, and the haters, referred to in ramblings as the toxic minority, will be left behind on a doomed world as the rapture occurs. And 3. The second coming, where Chris will descend from the Temple of Solitude and personally carry out the collective shift, as well as rescue buildings and artifacts he happens to like. While that one did eventually happen, it was merely Chris's return to the internet. After this second coming, Chris began to blame Russia for the delays, especially the Russo-Ukrainian war, which just so happened to begin on Chris's 40th birthday. Yeah, the trigger, and this was not influenced by the idea guys, shockingly enough. The trigger for the war was, of course, Putin personally pitching My Little Pony G5. That was something Chris seems to believe in now, apparently, specifically invented to be Russian propaganda. Chris has later stated that if Hasbro was to cancel the series, make 5 more series of Generation 4, and remake G5 from the ground up, World War III would end and the merge would also continue. I wish I was joking, but no, it's borderline one of the most insane bits of I know I've been with... Listen, it's ironic because 2019 was round about the time when I started to know Chris fairly regularly through like Dylan Thomas and Gibby, and I'm still shocked that even to this day, when you hear stuff like this, that it is so incredibly insane, so incredibly deranged, that I'm beginning to wonder whether or not I'm even calling myself like insane as well, because for some reason I'm listening to it. I know it's bullshit, don't get me wrong, but he is that into it, and he's, like I said, in the trade we call it going all in, and either Chris will just straight up stop talking about it, or he will do something stupid again, and things will go from bad to worse, as they always do whenever it comes to Chris. So, look out for that. And in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I hope to look forward to seeing all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.